So today I'm gonna talk about the beginning of the project. We started first trying to ask ourselves, what genre do we want to tackle? Before going to anything else, we start, what genre do we want to tackle? And after a couple of meetings, we decided we either wanted to make a tower defense game or a top-down Zelda-like game. But then, after another meeting, we were like, what if we do a tower defense game? And instead of having the normal menu, we have a menu in the style of how the Legend of Zelda games actually are. So we had the genre. Now we needed to find, what do we make the game about? We know what is gonna happen gameplay wise. Let's now think about the aesthetic. How does it look like? What is it? And when I was tasked to just like think of ideas, I came up with, a hospital, because to me tower defense kind of connected with the immune system, and as such I came with the idea of a hospital. But then I asked like for other aesthetics that may be good to explore, and so I tried like a medieval aesthetic, and I do like these drawings, and this is the thing, these drawings are in the medieval medieval aesthetic, but there's still ideas that can be repurposed for the game. But going back to the game, we settled on the medical aesthetic, because we thought it would make a game that just by looking at it you can already tell it's a different thing. So I drew a lot of art of like enemies, potential characters, trying to get the idea across. I drew a lot of like idea for towers, as you can see in these pictures. They're all drawings just about the idea itself before we decide to go further, because in a way I do like having like a giant pool of ideas that I can borrow from, so that then we can go like, okay, what is gonna work for the game? And as such, I drew a lot of enemies as well, just to get like an idea of like the vibe I want it to be, because I felt like for such a topic it's better to have like a more goofy, silly tone rather than make it too direct a connection to real medical stuff. That's why instead of like mad cow disease, we have silly shit disease. That's why instead of tetanus, we had tentacles. So that's kind of the vibe I wanted to go with. I wanted to go with a vibe that was silly, but still felt new. It's like, how many tower defense can you say that go for an aesthetic like this? And I feel like just from our ideas, we have a lot of potential to make a game that just it feels unique, it looks unique, and it also still feels like a proven formula. So it's a proven formula with a very good differentiation in the aesthetic that it chooses, and that's what I really like about the what we ended up going for. Just to showcase a little bit more of the images, but yeah, I really like this idea, and I'm happy that this is the idea I went through, because I feel like it just has so much potential.
Within this project, I worked on the player movement cinemachine artwork, as well as the debug screen for non-functional testing, and I edited these videos together. You can see my issue tracker commits right here. I managed to make contributions to all of these requirements, as well as the progress report, which can be summarized right here. For the artwork, I managed to create these chairs, as well as a TV right here, which plays an animation. I also implemented this FPS counter, as well as the player's location for more non-functional testing, so we can make sure player alignment and other things like that. I also drew this bed and animated it as well. Within the scripts, I made the player position change. I did this through gathering the movement input and transforming the rigid body, as well as I managed to accomplish the FPS counter through a pretty simple script of just gathering and averaging the frame rates. For the player movement, I also added collider objects throughout. I separated these layers, so the top layer right here, we can't walk through walls, as well as we have the ability to walk through these doors because they're not collision objects. And I utilized the debug screen up here while creating these. The rigid body works for anything, or the box glider works for anything above the player's level, and that's through the collision tile map.
Alright, so this increment, my main component that I was working on was the level data itself, as well as some of the enemy pathing. So as you can see here, I have the class diagram up here. We have a main class that handles all the level data based on each level, the strength, which enemies are going to happen, just handling the overall structure of the enemy pathing and wave. And then on top of that, I created a little diagram over here for how the enemies will be handled. We'll have a basic enemy type scriptable object in Unity, which will store all the prefabs for each individual enemy. Each of those which will have a enemy data class right here, just storing its information, getting all of its information, and then also storing the location data based upon how the pathing will work. And so when we come into the Unity project, we can see here I have a example scene set up where it has each of these points which act as waypoints throughout this level data, which are all stored within that level class. And so then if I begin this scene, and then for right now, just as a test scene, I just have space to trigger the next wave, but in a future iteration, we'll have a button to set that you want the next wave to continue. If I now press space, it'll start the next wave, and we can see it spawning these test enemies, and they're following the path along this level. And now this may take a second, but we can see that once they get to the end, they're going to get destroyed. And so within this as well, there is a framework to allow for enemy damaging, so that once we have the towers implemented as well, that is already handled as well. And see, once we get to the end, it just damages them so that they get destroyed. Looking in the code here, we have our level data class. We store all of the information here, as well as those waypoints right here. And then every frame, we're going to check to see if they hit the spacebar just for now. Otherwise, they'll be triggered differently. We'll go to next wave. Once we trigger next wave, we'll set it active, start this coroutine here, which will loop through every single enemy that is on the board, and then slowly increment them between the waypoint indexes, smoothly transition them between the frames. And then we have that further up here where it is handled specifically the enemy pathing.
Hey, my name is Aiden McGill. I'll be going over portions of our project that I'm responsible for. Just this being phase 1 or increment 1 is mostly just planning and document stuff. So as far as specifics, everything that I did is written here in documents and otherwise. Mostly the documents though. We have all our names. This is just the progress report document. So all the information, all the details are already here. Same with the software requirements document. Same with the testing document. But as far as things I can show you immediately that I did, the use case diagram, Will and I did this. Will did most of it, but I added player data at the tower, implemented this NPC class and menu UI class, and yeah, good stuff there. So we have this. I added a little bit to this, but you can see that in the planning document. We have 3 of our sequence diagrams here. I created this first one, which is dialogue with an NPC in the menu, which I actually did implement, even though it's increment 1. So I'll show you that real quick. Here it is. Here's the preview we have for our project. Here's the menu portion that we have so far. This is not the actual gameplay portion, but just we thought it would be neat to be able to move around and navigate the menu, like selecting levels, settings, that kind of stuff, via like a Zelda style, action RPG style thing. So we have the 2 currency counters up here. One's the in-game currency for placing towers, and one's for purchasing new towers via a shop. And we have a dialogue that I implemented here, which is just a sprite and then a box collider for actually running into them so that you're not walking through them, and then another box collider that's slightly larger that every frame it waits to see if you're in it and press space, and then it initiates dialogue, which is working off of it's displaying via basically just whatever's in the array of strings, and it'll go through and it has this neat little 1x1 character thingy there, the icon and then the name for the NPC, and you can put whatever you want and it'll just go through, and you do space to initiate it and space to continue, and you can hit escape to exit out. So yep, that's all I have so far. Thank you for watching.
Hello, I am Rafael. I am part of the group here at Do Not Resuscitate, or better known as Group 5, and my contributions to our project so far have been in the creative aspect, more specifically in the creative writing and idea coming up aspect. Specifically, I have been coming up with ideas for level design and for character design and story design. To illustrate here, I created some parameters or rules for how to design levels for the tower defense portion. I examined how levels are typically made in this genre, and I wrote down rules for them so that we can manufacture these levels faster. I also came up with thematic ideas for these levels, such as theming levels after maybe the pathing of a brain, or the mitochondria, the EKG machine. And this would be the pathing that enemies would take in tower defense and our tower defense levels. I also came up with ideas for obstacles that could be in these levels that would prevent the player from placing down their units. And some of these ideas can range from the X-ray machine, a wet floor sign, skeleton, or even giant cotton balls. But the place where I had probably the most amount of writing was here, where I had to come up with units, enemies, and story elements. It started here, and then I iterated on this page so that then it would turn into this, where I came up with 16 units, 16 enemies, and a bunch of story elements. Some of the units I came up with was things like tea, antibiotics, masks, even prayers or defibrillators. And these would be used to defend against oncoming enemies such as the Black Plague, malaria, appendicitis, bonitis, or even cooties. And the story here is supposed to explain why we're even doing this. And since we're in a hospital theming, I've decided to be a little more creative with it and say that it has to do with a certain new procedure to help people with their immunity system. But these were my contributions to the project, amongst other smaller coding aspects such as level switching or scene management. Thank you.